The opening bit of this was to like make fun of all the nerdy shit that I own, but everything's in the wash right now. So all I've got is this suit from this movie, and then I've got my D&D hat. So I hope you enjoy that. I'm also by myself, so I had to do the lighting on my own, and that's why there's this weird shadow and everything. Barry's not with us anymore, so... Sorry. I'm fucking coughing. Let's get into the video. So the basic idea of this video and this series that's gonna eventually become is I read too many comic books, way more than any people in my social circle, I suppose, except for a few, because you have the modern day audience where it's just Marvel movies matter, which is so poor in my opinion, because there's things that if you read the books, you'd appreciate it more when it happens in the movie. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just go from the start of something, you know, hit all the important story beats and a couple important origin stories and things like that, and then roughly around modern day, where it doesn't really matter to read the book yet because now the movie just matters. And there are billions of channels who do this concept way better than me. That's why I put them in the description below. They're my favorite ones. There are other ones other than them, but they're my favorite ones, and they probably do it at a pace where you'd be able to understand it way easier. So I highly recommend going to them too. But if you like putting up with my stupid ass, then stick around, we're gonna start. So the year is 1939. I like how I did that. Hey, Vsauce! Year is 1939, and this is where Timely Publications, which goes on to become Marvel, starts. And they first came up with the story about the Human Torch. And it wasn't the Human Torch that you're used to. It wasn't from the Fantastic Four. It was this guy named Carl Burgos, who was the original Human Torch, and he was like this android dude. I don't really know. There's no exact way to know, but he's like half robot, half man type thing. And it was such a cool concept that people were like, oh, superheroes are fucking awesome. So this is also where you had Captain America show up, and Namor the Submariner. We'll get to him. He does, I guess, matter. We'll get to him. He's kind of an asshole. But that all took place during the golden age of comics, that's called. And then eventually something happened where this, I forget his name, this doctor guy, or this therapist dude, or whatever the fuck, comes out with this idea that, because the youth were reading these comic books, they're gonna grow up to be super violent and fuck shit up. So let's burn all comic books. And that's literally what it was. It was parents taking their kids' comic books, throwing them into piles and burning them. Burning the literature. So after, you know, a couple long eras of being Timely Publications, going through that, then changing to Atlas Comics, and that didn't work, they decided that by bringing in Stan Manley and Jack Kirby, they could make something called Marvel Comics. And that's where you'll start to care about things. So as soon as this era of Marvel Comics started, when they officially began calling themselves Marvel Comics, this is where you had everything you'll know about in pop culture that you're aware of, basically. So Fantastic Four, this is where that happened. Spider-Man, Black Panther first got his start, which is actually really funny, in a Fantastic Four book. Everybody who was anybody basically got an origin story from a Fantastic Four book, because the Fantastic Four are everything. They're literally what started the big leagues of Marvel, if you really think about it, which is so funny because we don't have a actually 100% roughly good Fantastic Four movie that gets the point of the books. You just have... Please don't leave me! I'm sorry. Reed, do something, please! I wash my hands. So why don't we do that? Why don't we go through the very first story that really matters?
So, The story of the Fantastic Four starts off with the way that they got their powers, and you had Reed Richards, who in Marvel Comics is often given the title of World's Smartest Man, and you also had Susan Storm, who was the fiance of Reed. You had Johnny Storm, who was your younger brother and just your average super irresponsible teenager of the 60s. And then you had Ben Grimm, who was best friend to Reed. And in one very particular day, Reed Richards had designed this rocket ship that could travel into space and, explore and all this other shit. But the government told them not to do it because of the unknown effects of cosmic rays and radiation and all this other stuff that was a big topic in the 60s. And pretty much everybody had chickened out except for Reed, and Reed just managed to convince all of them into doing it, and they managed to sneak aboard this ship and steal it and fly out towards space. And of course, no shit, everything goes wrong, and they get bombarded by cosmic rays, and this is what leads to them gaining their powers. So once they crash on Earth, Sue Storm turns invisible, and that's obviously how she gets her title of the Invisible Woman, but she can also do telekinetic type stuff, and Ben just starts watching in horror as his whole body, his skin turns into this rock substance, and he goes to beat the shit out of Reed with a tree, but then realizes that he's the Thing, and they call him the Thing. And then Reed just kind of dodges his way out of the tree, and that's when he realizes that he's all stretchy and shit, and he's Mr. Fantastic, as he so humbly calls himself. And then Johnny is just freaking the fuck out, panicking, and he then realizes that he's completely covered in flames, and he can fly, and all this other crazy hormonal shit. And Johnny obviously becomes the Human Torch. And then after they all calm down, then, Reed goes on and on about, how they have these amazing powers, and they need to be responsible with them. Thing is just shut the fuck up and let's be the Fantastic Four. And they all put their hands together, and that's officially when they become Marvel's first super family.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this first episode. I'm going to be doing more videos in the future of this because, I don't know, I think it's necessary. Isn't it awesome just to learn? Not for me, I understand, but yeah. So hopefully I'll see you around next episode where we're going to handle
Doctor Doom,
which is going to be super fun. Later days!